Hey guys, it's Kevin and welcome to another tutorial. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a Cinema 4D tutorial, and so a lot of people have asked me to do some of these. I am not an expert in Cinema 4D, but I do enjoy playing with it and practicing with it, and so I wanted to just show you just a quick tutorial today on how to create a hot air balloon. So what we're going to do, we've got Cinema 4D open here. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. We'll just call this balloon tutorial. We've got this open, and what I want to do is go ahead and get to my front view here. So let's go and open up our front view. And what I've got is a picture of a balloon. I got directly off the internet, just went to Google, found a picture of a balloon that I liked, and I'm just going to bring it right here into the front view of Cinema 4D. Now that balloon's a little bit too big for me. I need to make it smaller, and the way you can do that is go to Mode, View Settings, click on back, which just means the back plate, and then that balloon image here, we can just make it a little bit smaller. So something kind of like that, I think would be fine. And then I just might move it over just a little bit to make sure it's perfectly centered in here, but we can always move that later. All right, so that looks fine right there. I'm going to change my transparency pretty low because I don't need to see it that vibrantly. I just need to see this outside shape here. All right, so now that we have that on our front view, let's go back to perspective view and let's go ahead and start building it, and then we will shape it in our front view in just a minute. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a Loft tool here, and which is a really fun tool to use, but we have to use a shape first. And so if you click on this button here, you have all these shapes, and we're going to do the cycloid shape, which is this nice little round shape right here. But we don't want the cycloid, we want the epicycloid. So just go and change your type to that one. Now we have this nice little spiral here, and we're going to make it larger and larger so it starts to create this very interesting shape here. Now it depends on how big or how many sections you want in your balloon. You could either do like 300, which is going to give you like, I think that's 6 little parts that puff out there, or you can do like 600, or you could do 900. It depends on how big you want this thing to be. But I think around let's try 750. I'm going to do anywhere between 600 and 900. I think that would be a good starting point. We can change it later if we need to, but I think that's a good starting point right there. It's about 20 or so little puffs out here. But what we want to do is we want to change our A here, and I'm just going to bring them down a little bit, maybe to like 35, 30. We'll call it around 30, and you can change that if you want to, but I think around 30 will be fine, and that should be good right there. Okay, so to do a loft, you have to have multiple shapes. So let's go ahead and make a new cycloid. Just hold Control on your keyboard and then drag, and now we have 2 of these things. And I'm just going to grab this the blue arrow here so we can go out on the Z-axis, and that way we can make our loft. So let's go ahead and bring a loft in right here, and then we're going to drag both of those cycloids and stick it in that loft. Now we have this nice little shape. This is how we're going to create our balloon. Let's make sure they're in there. Before we get started though, let's go ahead and move this thing up. I'm just going to rotate the loft 90 degrees, just so it's standing up and not laying on the ground. Balloons ought to be going vertical. So let's make sure we're at the right perspective here. All right, so here is our balloon, how we've got at least the foundation of our balloon here. Let's go ahead and look on our lines. But it doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have a lot of character here. It looks pretty flat. So the way you can fix that is go to your loft. We're going to change our subdivisions for the U. We're going to change that to about 100, and then we're going to change the V to about 40-ish. Maybe not 40, but I think 40 would be okay, but something like that. So now we have this nice little like flower shape here, and this is a great starting point for our balloon. So when you use a loft, so for example, we're going to go ahead and bring another cycloid in here. So now I've got 3 cycloids in here, one on the top, one on the bottom, one right here in the middle. And so what we do is when you hit the transform T on your keyboard, and then you make that middle loft bigger, you're going to start to puff it out like this. And then we can bring multiple cycloids, into this loft and make it bigger or smaller. The top can be smaller as well, etc. But what I want to do is I don't want to just guess at it. I want to actually follow the perspective of the actual balloon here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use this picture of the balloon on our front view, and then that way we can make sure it's as accurate as possible. Now you can see my loft is a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger than my reference picture, and so what we want to do is just make sure that this loft is nice and small, and then we'll just bring it over top of this balloon. And so what I want to do, my goal here is I just want it to look, or I want it to be about the same height and the same width as far as like the widest part of it. So let's do that. Let's make it just a little bit wider right here. Oops. Okay. All right, let's make sure this is the right size. Okay, I think that's fine. So I've got it about the same length and the same width as far as the widest part of it. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to move these cycloids around and try to get the right shape. So for example, let's go ahead and go down to this bottom one right here, which is at the, it's at the very bottom of the balloon. It's where, it's right before the basket down here. So at the very bottom, what we're going to do is just get your T on your keyboard and let's just make it really small. You can zoom in if you want to, but let's just make it nice and small like that. And you see how it kind of juts out. So what we want to do is we want to make it look the same width as this part where it juts out. And we may need to go back to our reference picture here. Just kind of move it a little bit so it's the right size. But let's go ahead and move that in kind of like that. I think that's good. Then what we want to do is make another cycloid. So just hold Control on your keyboard, drag it down, and then let's move it up. So let's go up to about right there. We can actually make it a little bit smaller maybe. Okay. Now let's go up again. So let's make another cycloid. So just Control on your keyboard, drag it down. So now we have a new one, and let's bring this one up. And we want this one to go about right there. Okay. Now let's make a new one. So Control on your keyboard, drag it up. Let's go right here, and let's just make sure it's nice and big. Following these little outlines here. You don't have to be perfect, of course, but just try to follow it as best as you can. And I think that looks pretty good. Now when we get to this cycloid, we've already got this one, and you can just adjust it. This is our middle one that poofs out really good. So something like that. And then let's go up. Let's make another cycloid. Oops. Okay, and let's bring this one up right here. And you can transform it however you need it, maybe like that. Let's make another one. Bring it up, and then let's bring it in. So just transform on your keyboard. That's all we're doing here. And let's go to that top one real quick, and let's make this one smaller as well. Kind of like that. But that's really all it is to making this balloon. It's just making it bigger and smaller like that. And I'm going to make one more on top. So let's do one more that goes right up here. And I'm just going to make this one go all the way to 0. Let's just bring that all the way down to 0. And so that's going to close our loop. Okay, so how does that look? I think we're matching it pretty well. There might be one or two in here. Like this one probably needs to be either moved up or made smaller. Maybe this one needs to go out just a little bit more. But play around with it until you get that shape about the way that you want it. If you ever feel like you have too many in here, you can always delete them. So I could delete this one right here and then make this one just a little bit smaller, and maybe that's going to be a better shape. But something like that I think looks pretty good. All right, so let's go back to our perspective view. Let's see what we have down here. There we go. There is our balloon. That's not bad. Not bad. Now this is, since you're actually looking at it from like a 3D perspective, this is when you can actually, you know, do a lot more work on here. Now I'm gonna go to my mesh subdivisions. I'm gonna bring those down just a little bit. I think that's too many. So let's try 20 here, and let's maybe try 80. I just don't want to have too many polygons here, so it makes our render time a little bit too hard. But now that you have this part, you know, you can always just start playing around with your shape of your balloon. We've got the framework done. We've pretty much got it the way we wanted to using that reference image. But if you want to, you know, just kind of fine tune it to the way that you want it to look, this is where you can definitely do that. Just drag these. I'm just doing it on the blue arrow here. I'm not trying to do any other of the axes right now. I'm just trying to focus on one axis right here, but you can just play around with it until you get it the way you want it. So I think that looks a little bit better like that. Maybe bring this down. Something like that. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so there's our balloon. It's now what we want to do is we want to create the little basket that goes underneath it. So the basket's pretty simple to create. What we want to do with that is we want to do a loft as well. Oops. We want to do another loft. And so this one's going to be pretty simple. I'm not going to have to do too much you know, reference images here. But what we want to do is let's go ahead and get a square, or I guess it's a rectangle. Let's get a rectangle here. And let's bring this down, and we need to make it a lot smaller, kind of like that. And let's go ahead and change our plane to X, Y, or you can just rotate it. It's up to you. Okay, so to make our little basket down here, we want to have two of these squares. So let's go ahead and duplicate that, make another rectangle, bring that up. So now we have two rectangles. Let's put those in a loft. So let's just go click our loft, put both of those under the loft, and now we have this little box here. So what we want to do is, first of all, that's probably much too big. Let's go to our reference image here. Yeah, so our reference image shows us that little basket needs to be significantly smaller. So let's just transform this loft, make it a lot smaller. Where's my thing here? Okay, so let's just make it a lot smaller, kind of like that. So that's about the right. That's roughly about the right proportions here. So something kind of like that. Now, this box that we're going to do for this tutorial is going to be really simple. It's not going to be very, it's not going to be very, intricate here. It's just going to be a box. But what we want to do is we're doing the same principles here. Let's go back to perspective view. We have our box here, but I want to make the bottom part a lot wider. So I'm just going to go down here and make the bottom part wider. So now we have kind of like this pyramid shape here. So that looks pretty cool, I think. It's not like just a typical cube. It's kind of fatter at the bottom. So I think that looks pretty good. And then what we want to do is go to your loft and let's go to your caps. Let's get rid of your start cap. And so now we have a hollow box, which is good. So people can actually stay in it. And I think that's fine right there. Then go to your top rectangle here. So the one that's on the top right here, this one that's on the top, we're going to actually go duplicate that. So Control on your keyboard, make another one. So now we have one right here. But instead of making it taller, we're going to make it more narrow. So hold your T on the keyboard, transform, and then we're going to bring it in just a little bit. And then we're going to move it down. So in and down, and you can bring it all the way down to the floor if you want, something like that. And now it looks a little bit more natural. Something kind of like that. There we go. And I think that's fine. Maybe we should put some more subdivisions in here. might help when we're going to render this thing, depending on what texture you want to put on it. Something like that, I think, looks okay. Maybe organic would look better. Okay, so there's our little basket for someone to stay in. So that looks good. The last thing we want to do is we want to add the little tethers here. Now I'm not going to get real intricate here with all of these lines and everything. We don't need to do all of those, and I don't want to add like the flame and I don't want to do all that stuff just because I think that's just that's above my pay grade. I'm not quite ready for something like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few little strings here, little poles that are going into the balloon. So what we want to do is create a cylinder. So go up here, make a cylinder. All right, where's my cylinder? There's my cylinder. That's much, much too big. Obviously, we want to make this look more like a string. And so let's make it all the way down to about 3 centimeters and maybe like 100 centimeters tall, and this might still be a little bit too big. Let's do 1 centimeter. Okay, so there is our little post, our little pole that's going to go here. Now what we want to do is we don't want it to come up from the center. We want it to come from the edges of the basket here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a cloner. So let's go to cloner, put that in there, and then we're going to change our cloner from linear. We're going to change it to grid, and I'm going to do 2 by 2 by 2. Let's see where it went. It's way up here now. So let's go ahead and bring that down. Maybe not 2 by 2 by 1. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, we want 4 of them. You could have more, I guess, but I think that's good. And let's just bring our size in just a little bit like that. Okay, it is 2 by 2 by 2. Okay, 2 by 2 by 2. That makes, for some reason, that makes 4. But we have our cloner here. Let's go ahead and bring these up. And what we want to do is we want to make sure it fits on top of the corners here. And so really all you have to do is just widen it out until it looks right. Okay, so something kind of like that. Oops. All right, so we need to be just a little bit tighter in here. Okay. We've got them on our corners here. Just move it around till you think it looks about right. If that cylinder is too big, you can always make it smaller, 0.5 centimeters, for example. Just little strings now. And if you want to add more, let's see what happens when we start to add more. Well, if you add more, they're going to get more spaced out. So we'll just leave it at 4 right now. 4 is a good number. 4 should hold this balloon up just well. All right, so now we've got four little strings right here, and so the last thing we want to do is, let's see if, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. This is where I'm not an expert at. I'm going to put this into a null, and I'm going to get a taper, and we can't fit it to parent, but what we can do, we're going to make this taper a lot smaller. So let's make it as small as we can here to fit. Okay, I just want this taper to fit like right on these little strings we have here. So just make sure they're inside the strings. Kind of like that. Okay, so now that we have it like that, we can taper this a little bit. So we can probably taper it out, kind of like this. Just make sure they don't go through the balloon. I think that looks good. Oh, we need to go back up to our loft and take that cap off. There we go. because we don't want there to be a polygons right there. Okay, so that looks good. We just tapered our strings here, and so now they're going up into the balloon. And I think that looks good right there. All right, let's zoom out, see how we look. I think that looks pretty good. And guys, that's pretty much it. Now, of course, you can start adding your textures and you can add your colors and all that stuff. But this is how you model this, and it's so awesome because if you just save this, and then if you ever want to go back and just start playing around with your the shapes and stuff, and making the sizes and everything a little bit different, you can always do that. So you have the flexibility there. But this is just a really fun project. We did it in 20 minutes or something. And I think that you can, use this for your projects and have fun with it. And guys, I hope you enjoyed something with this one today, and I'll show you the rendered version here at the end that we finished up with. But guys, this is something that I really enjoy playing around with. I hope that you enjoy Cinema 4D as well, and look forward to see what you guys can create. And I hope to see you again at a new tutorial where we just have fun making things on the computer, have fun things making with Photoshop, Cinema 4D, and our photography, and just making some really creative images. But that's all I got for today. I will see you again at the next video.